Welcome back to the front stretch, rolling into turn number 2, presented by Quaker Steak and Lube in Council Bluffs, the official watering hole of the front stretch. Get over to Quaker Steak and Lube today for all the great sights, sounds, and smells. Their summer menu should be out. Classic Car Cruising is in full swing. In a couple of weeks, they'll do another one of their Lift and Loaded events. Lots of stuff going on at Quaker Steak and Lube in Council Bluffs. Make sure you get over there any day of the week. But every day of the week probably wouldn't be too bad.
And what's the weekend deal now? The hot seat.
Yeah, I forgot all about that. So there is a select spot in the Handlebar bar. So Quaker Steak, if you've ever been there, when you walk into the main area where the hostess is, you can either turn north or you can turn south. When we do our live events, we go all the way to the south into the Brickyard. If you go north, which is where we do our recorded events,
the Corvette
room, the bar that is there is called the Handlebar Bar, and they pick a table every Friday and Saturday. And if you you end up getting sat at the hidden table, at the select table,
the hot seat,
then you get discounts.
Nice.
So little kind of cool things they're doing, and I think there is still the worst seat in the house sign that is in the Brickyard. The way the table's laid out, there is a floor drain in that room that makes the tables and the chairs uneven.
Oh, nice.
So if you look up at that table, there's a sign that says, "This is the worst seat in the house, get 10% off your bill." But you gotta ask for it. So make sure to find that sign, both the hot seat sign on Fridays and Saturdays, and then the worst seat in the house 7 days a week over at Quaker Steak and Lube in Council Bluffs. Another Lyle's Tire and Wheels interview down at the World of Wheels Car Show. We did an absolute boatload of these things back in March, and we sat down with Eric of the Midwest Classic Stock Car Association, one of these great touring series that is trying to keep some of the old classics on the racetrack and showing the kids what's going on with these, I hate calling them old classics because they're cars that were kind of nice when I was growing up, but they're definitely turning into classics.
They were cars that were racing before you were born.
Yes. Eric, man, appreciate you joining us on the podcast again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We always look forward to coming down here and talking to you guys and
it's a great time.
Checking out everything here. So,
you guys have got a pretty comprehensive schedule throughout the year, and it's kicking off this coming Friday at Boone County Raceway in Albion. But let's talk a little bit. Any rule changes for 2025 that the fans need to kind of keep an eye on?
About the only thing we did, just because if you're aware, there's been a lot of issues with cams and lifters and stuff like that. We did start allowing a hydraulic roller cam in the motors.
Up. I'm not.
Okay.
What is it?
There's been a lot of issues since COVID, basically, with the materials and cams and lifters, I think, more than anything.
Yeah.
And they're just the lifters are collapsing and are not collapsing, they're wearing.
Dissolving.
Yeah, they're basically coming apart, wiping out cam lobes and ruining engines. We've had a couple of people within our group that had engines lost due to cam failures. So because of that, we just we talked to 4 or 5 different engine builders and what the best route to go was, and they pretty much all said hydraulic roller. Yep. So that way it kind of controls them from getting too big, but gives the guys another option to have a more reliable engine.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a reliability issue at this point, but and I mean it not only in the engines, but I mean I've talked to guys not necessarily racers, but even just in the streetcar world, talking about this bad metal that we're getting a hold of. It's in brake rotors.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's several things. So, yeah, you guys had to fix something there to help your guys out.
Yeah. And so that was, kind of the big thing. And, like I said, I talked to 4 or 5 different engine builders to kind of come up with that, and including several of them that are building engines for guys in our group. So that's kind of how we arrived at that. Other than that, the only other real changes, we just decided we would allow a bead lock on the right front, just, Safety, and, it's not like it gives you any real advantage or anything, but so.
You guys always, I love that you guys have kind of a smaller sandbox to play in because parts can be difficult to come by.
Oh, yeah,
definitely. Like you were just kind of talking about. Quality parts is one thing, parts at all is another thing.
Right.
And, the more years that you guys continue to do this, the harder it is to find that. And I think we talked about it last year about kind of shifting that window a little bit of what you guys qualify as a stock car.
Yeah, we moved it up last year already. That I think it was actually 2 years ago now, but We went up to like 77 for GM products, and I think it was like 1980 for Fords and Mopars. So let's in some other cars that they're not necessarily racing as stock cars yet, but that's gives the Ford and Mopar guys a few more bodies. And we were going to 75, and GM really didn't change anything in 76 and 77. So might as well allow those years in too.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so you guys have got a schedule put together. Looks like you're running mostly weekly. Off-Road Speedway, Boone County Raceway, US 30. Kind of talk a little bit about your schedule, just kind of the over points of it.
Yeah, so as you just kind of mentioned there, US 30, Boone County Off-Road, that's kind of our center hub, I guess you would say. That's, kind of right in the middle there. But we're also going down to Beatrice. We're going to go down to the Speed Bowl this year. We're heading out to Lexington again, so back down to Thayer County Speedway. And this year we're even venturing down into Kansas. We're going to Thomas County Speedway in Colby, Kansas. So we're getting into another state we haven't done before, so we're looking forward to that.
That is a town I never thought I would hear of again. A buddy of mine lived there for a few years, and I drove to Colby, Kansas one New Year's Eve, and we got together.
Oh, yeah?
And that is such a small town. I never thought I would have ever heard Colby, Kansas again.
Well, when they first reached out to us, I was kind of like, God, where are you at?
Yeah.
But, we found it, and we tried to get something going last year, and we kind of had it set up. And then it just kind of, things didn't work out at the last minute. So right away this fall, he was like, okay, what kind of dates work for you guys? And I said, well, for us, it works good. We're going to be down at Deschler anyway, so that's kind of a third of the way there for a lot of us. And then we'll probably spend the night there or find a hotel someplace and then head on to Colby, Kansas. And
yeah, I think that's about a 6-hour trip from Omaha.
About that, that's kind of
Yeah.
what I figured.
Yeah.
Coming home, it'll
But
be
it's-
about a 6-hour trip.
But
so.
it works out. And I imagine you got to kind of work with some of the guys, some of the regular drivers of like, hey, are we going to be going too far? Is this a little bit too far out of your range?
Yeah, and that was kind of one of the deals. I got everybody together in a group message, and we said, hey, we're being asked to come down here. What do you guys think? And as long as I had a good majority of people that wanted to do it, we decided we'll do it. So
Yeah.
Do you guys try and keep the travel kind of to a minimum, or have you guys been invited to like go to Shelby County or Adams County or PJ or?
We used to go to Adams County Speedway. We're at Corning, and it just kind of the last few years it just hadn't worked out. We just never got a chance. We've got the group over in Iowa, Western Iowa Vintage Racing. They kind of run Harlan and Denison,
right.
and they go off our rules package too. So that way we can go back and forth. Because a bunch of us went over and ran the Tiny Lund with them last year and stuff like that. A few years back, we kind of did we called it Border Wars Challenge, 2 races in Iowa, 2 races in Nebraska. But, when we're supposed to be more for the fun, people were driving a little too aggressive, wanting to get that win and, the bragging rights for that. So we thought, well, that's not a good idea. So.
Yeah. I always know, I've heard fans say, stuff like the Good Old Time Racing Association, you guys, well, it's all predetermined. Ahead of time, they know who's going to win the race. They know who's going to finish where.
Not at all.
No truth to that at all.
No truth at all. I mean, start of the year, everybody draws for position. And, that's in a group where our cars are as equal as they are, that can be a big factor. And then just because this is more for fun and everything, once you win a race, you are ineligible to win the next 2 races that you attend or the car attends. So you can't just throw a different driver in your car and come win. And then you'll always start behind the people who haven't won. So, yeah, we do try to give the people who haven't won a race a little better of a chance. They start towards the front. But we've had people come from the back, and we've had people take off from the front and walk away with it. But
I do miss seeing you guys. You get to the Good Old Time Racing Association and the Midwest Classic Stock Car Association was always a 1 to 2 time year event at I-80 Speedway.
Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, our paths just don't cross as easily anymore. I'd love to see you guys out of Eagle, but that's just one of those things that probably won't happen.
Yeah, we worked Roger awful hard this year, but we just couldn't talk him into it. We were hoping to. We had talked once about when they were having that late model show, maybe being there one of those nights, but we couldn't talk him into it. So we'll keep working on him though, because we'd like to be down there. We liked, that was probably one of our best races a few years ago when we were down there. We had a huge group of cars. I think we had 18 that showed up, so it was a big night. And
More than modifieds.
Yeah, and we had
Sorry, I'm gonna get people. I'm gonna get in trouble.
we had
It's
a
just a joke.
I've got a picture. It's on our one group of us 5 wide in turn 1 and 2 at Eagle, and nobody wrecked. We made it. So
Yeah.
Is that what,
You
3
can
years
go
ago?
5 wide.
Yeah.
You can go 5 wide at Eagle.
yeah, as long as everybody's got their head on, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes 7 wide if you hit the bump in turn 1.
Depending how far into the infield, and you got to keep an eye out for if you go that far for the Four Corners guys. But
Yeah.
and my pit reporters, don't hit them. We're talking with Eric of the Midwest Classic Stock Car Association. So not a lot of changes for this year. You did allow for some changes in the engine, and then there was one other one, right?
Yeah, just the bead lock on the right
Bead locks,
front was
that's
the
right.
only one. So otherwise, what our motto is: if it's not broke, don't fix it. Everything's been working good. But we always have a rules meeting in the fall, about a month after the season. We get everybody together at somebody's shop or someplace, and we talk about the year and what was good, what was bad, and we try to build off of that. So
Rule number 1 still the same.
yep, have fun.
Have fun. And I think it's rule number 2 also, right?
Well, 1A, we've got Bill over here with us. He's
Yeah.
kind of our special promotions guy. He sets up our mystery spot.
Whoop, wrong button. There we
That's
go.
all right. But Bill, what's your rule? Yeah,
Pass Eric.
yeah. I always at the pit meetings, I always go, what's rule number 1, and everybody says that, and then Bill always has to chime in, pass Eric.
Put that microphone a little closer to your mouth so we can hear you when you do chime in. There you go. Much gooder.
Yeah, there's some other associations like this that are fun-based as far as competition-based. It coincides, but most of their number 1 rule is don't be a dick.
Pretty
So,
much, yeah.
I
Pretty
think
much.
is that your rule number 2?
Well, we don't put it that way, but
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
that's the unspoken
Oh.
rule, you could say.
I think that
you
might
sure?
be Gatra then.
So you're politically correct. Don't be a penis.
Well, no.
Don't be a Richard
Yeah.
Cranium.
Luckily, and I think this is like our 12th or 13th season. Luckily, I've only ever had to have that conversation with a couple of people
Yeah.
about, maybe this isn't for you, but
You started it, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the story, so I'm going to ask it again. How did this whole thing come about?
Well, basically, how I even got the idea was back when US 30 Speedway in Columbus would have their Cornhusker Vintage Nationals. They would always do that at the end of the race season in the fall, normally like first weekend in October, and they had all these different vintage cars coming in, and they would always have like a full-bodied class. There'd be a lot of guys that came up from like Kansas and Missouri because there were some groups down there, but some locals would drag old cars out too and go out there and have fun. And I just always thought that was so neat seeing the 60s Malibus, the 55 Chevys, the old Monte Carlos out there running around again. And I know there have been a couple of people that have tried to kind of get something going over the years and nothing really took off. And I guess it was just kind of timing right. I kind of worked with John Ferguson with Gatra, and he helped me with some ideas and stuff and was kind of a sounding board. And we held our first meeting. We put a car together, my car actually, the 53 Chevy. We had it at the Columbus swap meet and said, hey, meeting this afternoon after the swap meet. And we had quite a few people showed up, and we talked things over and got our rules. We kind of had a base idea what we wanted to do, but we talked about stuff and got our rules kind of set, and they really have not been tweaked much over the years other than just a few, things that people have brought up and stuff we thought we could do better. So
When you get them right, you get them right.
right.
No
Yeah.
need to keep messing with stuff. So again, your first race is coming up on Friday, May 23rd. As we publish, that's actually this coming week at Boone County Raceway, and then it's kind of every week, sometimes 2 weeks, all the way through the end of the season, which you've got wrapping up at US 30 on September 13th.
Yep. I was kind of happy this year the way it worked out. We got, I think there's actually 3 weekends where we're racing twice that weekend, which is kind of nice as long as everybody behaves themselves. But, then it frees up some other weekends, to get out. Because, the thing about our group is you don't have to be there every week. We'd love you if you're there every week. But, we've got, I think just last year, I think we had only a couple of us that had perfect attendance, made every race. But you know what? That's the joy of it. It's not. We're not keeping points. You're not running for points. This is for fun. Like I said, we love it if you can make more races because that's what puts on the show, and we have got more cars. But it's for that. We always say this isn't the class for the guy that has to win. This is for the guy that has to race. So get out there and have some fun.
Yeah, if you're gonna try and keep to a schedule, no matter again what series you're in, it's a commitment.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, when we started this, 10 was our number. 10. We're going to no more than 10 races, because then it turns it kind of back into full-time racing and a job. And we got as high as 16 the one year, and I was like, oh my God, that was a load. It was like, because some of our drivers are getting up there in years, and that gets hard on them. And I'm no spring chicken myself anymore, so that's if I got to keep working on race car every week to keep it running right, it turns it back into a job and kind of takes the fun out of it.
If you were a spring chicken though, and you'd sell your eggs, you could probably race Lucas Oil with your leg
probably
model.
That's.
I can tell you that doesn't. No.
No.
I'm waiting to turn a profit.
With your chickens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, there's a lot of money that goes into these little things.
Yeah, I know. We are actually looking at getting some of our own chickens. My girlfriend's wanted to do it for like the last couple of years, and you start looking at the stuff you have to buy and the feed. I mean, we've already got a chicken coop. I live on an acreage, so that works. But the feed is like crazy anymore.
We've got 10 head, and we go through about a 50-pound bag every 2 to 3 weeks during. Like this time of year when we're recording back in March when it's spring and there's not a lot to forage, so we're going through a ton of food. During the summertime when there's a lot more stuff foraging, I would tell you absolutely do it. I love having them.
Mm-hmm.
Get 3 or 4. You don't need, because there's such a thing as called chicken math. And Sarah did it. She said, we're going to go to the store tomorrow and we're going to get a chicken. We came home with 4.
Okay.
Because, one of them needs a buddy.
Right.
And then, there's this one. And then that one needs a
this
friend.
one was just so cute.
Yeah, it was. And
Right.
so all of a sudden we had 4. So now we're going to have some.
You can't have 3 because 2 would pick on the other one.
Correct.
Right.
So start with 3 or 4. That'll produce plenty of eggs. The cost shouldn't be that too crazy.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
And it really does sound so weird to me that my favorite thing to do after work is sit down in the backyard with a high noon, a full-fledged beer or a glass of whiskey, and just the chickens just walk around and peck at the ground, and it's just so relaxing.
He's got free-range chickens though, because they're all over the neighborhood.
Semi-free range. They're when we're out.
I don't
we've
know
had a
how
couple
my
coyote attacks.
Yeah, I don't know how my dog would do with free-range chickens, so we'll just have to see how that goes, I guess. But
My girlfriend does them, but she doesn't do them for the layers. She buys the chicks in, like 7 weeks.
Yeah.
They're up
Broilers.
to whatever,
Meat birds.
3
birds.
pounds.
Yeah.
And sell them for the food.
There you go.
Eric, this took a left-hand turn on us. As it usually does.
Hey, it's racing. One of those.
Midwest Classic Stock Car Association, MCSA. By the way, I got to ask, stock car 1 or 2 words?
Well, we've actually got it as one word on
Yeah.
there just to, because then
Okay.
that's why MCSA,
Right.
the
'Cause then
association at the end.
Oh, it'd be a-
But
Yeah.
it's not as good as race car, because race car is the same front word and
Well,
backwards.
yeah, true. But race car upside down is expensive.
It is. Can be.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for us in God, I've already lost track of where we're at. That's going to do it for us for today's episode of the podcast. Make sure to follow us on the Facebook page. Make sure to follow the Midwest Classic Stock Car Association. They're going to be at a local racetrack this coming weekend and throughout the entire summer. Eric, always love talking with you. Thanks a lot for coming in, man.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's always a good time.
Dirk and I are going to be back on Thursday with another edition of The Front Stretch.